Good afternoon. The Public Safety Committee will now come to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Odenberg. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Here. Alderwoman Keys. Here. Alderwoman Velasquez.
Present.
Alderwoman Sanye. Alderman Aldrich.
Present.
Chair Narayan.
Here.
Alderman Odenberg. Alderwoman Sanye. We have 5 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. A quorum being present, I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of Thursday, March 28th, 2024.
I move that we, second.
All right, being moved by Alderman Aldridge, seconded by Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Odenberg. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Aye. Alderwoman Keys.
Aye.
Alderwoman Velasquez.
Aye.
Alderwoman Sanye. Alderman Aldrich.
Aye.
Chair Narayan.
Aye.
Alderman Odenberg. Alderwoman Sanye. We have 5 aye votes.
All right, with that, we have approved the minutes of Thursday, March 28th. At this point, Alderman Oldenburg has asked to be excused for necessary absence. I'll entertain a motion to excuse him from today's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, with that, we've excused Alderman Oldenburg. So the way that we're going to take things up today, we're starting at 1 o'clock as opposed to 2 o'clock today to try and get in as much of the public testimony as we can before our 3 o'clock cutoff. So I want to take up a couple of quick matters first, and then we're going to run the public hearing until either we are out of people or we hit 3 o'clock. With that, we'll take up the mayoral reappointment of LaMarko Scales and Patrick Moynihan, Michael Young and Daryl Hunter to the Committee of Plumbing Review. And after that, we'll take up the mayoral reappointment of Matthew Scott Russell, Patrick Moynihan to the Plumbers and Drainlayers Board of Examiners. At this point, I'll hand the meeting over to you, Vice Chair.
All right, Alderman from the 4th, you may proceed on the appointments from the mayor's office.
All right, thank you. These are all reappointments. These gentlemen have served on these same committees previously. They had asked to be excused from the hearing today because they are currently on a job. I told them that that made sense since these are reappointments. We know these folks work. They're the local has come in to answer any questions that we have. We have Tom Malachek and Fred Searcy here to answer any questions on the capability of any of these folks, both on item number 1 and 2. I typically would say, hey, I'd prefer you to come in, but it's hard for me to justify telling people to take time off work in order to get vetted to volunteer for the city once they've already done that. So with that, I'll yield to any questions on this. Otherwise, I ask for your favorable consideration on committee item number 1.
All right, going in list of seniority of any questions from the committee. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair and Chair, for being amenable to this. As a daughter of a plumber, I definitely understand the scheduling of a plumber on work sites and everything, and I know that we all know the work that goes into this prior to it getting to us, as well as their resumes and any other background information is in our drive and the items for discussion. So I'm happy to be able to be here and in support of the reappointments of both sets of plumbers today. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Keys.
I don't have any questions, and I support the reappointment of these candidates.
Thank you, Alderlady. Alderwoman Velasquez.
No questions. Thank you.
No questions. Support the appointments too. Mr. Chair, you have the floor to close.
All right, at this point, I would ask that we approve the mayoral reappointments. Or we pass out the mayoral reappointment of LaMarko Scales, Patrick Moynihan, Michael Young, and Daryl Hunter to the Committee of Plumbing Review with a due pass recommendation.
I move that we pass the
Second.
reappointments with a due pass recommendation to the Committee of Plumbing Review.
Second.
All right. There was a motion by Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 6th. Madam Clerk, could you please call?
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys,
Aye.
Alderwoman Velasquez,
Aye.
Alderwoman Sanye, Alderman Aldrich,
Aye.
Chair Narayan,
Aye.
Alderwoman Sanye. We have 5 aye votes.
All right. By your vote of 5-0, you have sustained the motion for the appointments to from the mayor's office for the plumbers.
Thank you. And with that, I'll take up discussion item number 2, which is the reappointments of Matthew Scott Russell and Patrick Moynihan to the Plumbers and Drainlayers Board of Examiners. Similar situation, same local here to answer any questions that we have. These are reappointments. Again, these people have already been vetted by the city and been doing quality work for quite some time, and I would ask for your favorable consideration.
All right. Thank you, Alderman. I will start questions and seniority from committee members, starting with Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
I had the same comments too, so I'm happy to be here in support of the reappointment today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderwoman Keys.
I am supportive, no questions.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderwoman Velasquez.
Same. No questions. Support.
Same for myself. So, Alderman, you may proceed on the reappointments.
With that, I move that we pass the mayoral reappointment of Matthew Scott Russell and Patrick Moynihan to the Plumbers and Drainlayers Board of Examiners with a due pass recommendation.
I move that we pass the reappointments to the Plumbers and Drainlayers Board of Examiners with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Previous row. Seeing no objections, you have sustained the motion of the reappointments to the Plumbers Drain Layer Board of Examiners.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Vice Chair. Alderwoman Keys, you're up. Board Bill number 241.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Public Safety Committee. If I could please have the clerk to read the summary.
Board Bill number 241, introduced by Alderwoman Laura Keys, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 70573 and ordinance number 71045, and establishing a new liquor control district within the boundaries of the 11th Ward, prohibiting the issuance of any packaged liquor or drink licenses for any currently non-licensed premises, and the transfer of an existing license to another premises within the area of the 11th Ward, specified in Section 2, for a period of 5 years, beginning from the effective date of this ordinance, except as specified in Section 4 and containing an emergency clause.
Thank you. So this board bill actually repeals the previous one, which had an error which overlapped the 12th ward, as many of our wards do now with the ward reduction. And so that caused a lot of problems. So in order to do a correction, the previous 70573 70573 is repealed and then replaced by 71045.
Is that, okay, yeah. Then I will just move down the roll here. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Velazquez.
No questions. Thank you.
Vice Chair Aldridge.
Just a quick one. I think this last Friday, Alderwoman from 12 did a board bill to take hers out. So did that cancel your board bill? 'Cause I know she repealed.
And I'm not as familiar with hers, but what I do know with my particular board bill, which was 70573, the boundaries were off.
Okay.
And so that's what really caused the problems. All of us are adjusting to the new lines.
I support it. I'll just say, just make sure, I guess once it's passed, maybe want to check those. Because I know she repealed something, and if you repealing the same one, you
It
maybe.
became necessary for her to do something similar.
Okay. Just don't want, if she repealed one, then you repealing it, you may be repealing hers and start back at zero. So
Hopefully we got it straight now,
okay.
but we have our best and brightest in the board's attorney's office working on this. So hopefully we've got it straight now.
Is that all you have, Vice Chair?
that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any questions. The excise bill that was, Board Bill 60, that was sent to the mayor's office specifically states that it does not supersede any of these moratoriums. So to the extent that an alderman wants to have a moratorium in their ward, that's their business as far as I'm concerned. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to pass Board Bill number 241 out with a due pass recommendation.
I move to pass Board Bill 241 with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Previous row.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, we have passed Board Bill number 241 out with a due pass recommendation.
Thank you for your indulgence.
All right, now we are going to move to item number 3 on our agenda, which is the re-envisioning the workhouse discussion. Before we jump in, I just want to state to everyone here that the members of this committee genuinely do want to hear your testimony on this. I know last week that there was some frustration about that. I want to be clear. There's no either legal or requirement in our rules to open this to public testimony, since it's not a board bill. But as the chair of public safety, I genuinely want to hear from as many of you as I can on this. It's very frustrating for me. I know it was frustrating for you to take time out of your day to come down here and then be cut off by a different meeting. The reason that we had specific times this session for different committee meetings was so that we didn't run into that exact issue. But as STL TV has run out of overtime funds, they have a hard 5 p.m. stop. So again, today we do have a 3 p.m. stop for another meeting, which is why we moved this meeting to 1 p.m. to get everything out of the way so that we could get as much testimony in as we can. And to the extent that we don't hear from everyone, I'm more than happy to hold another hearing on this. And you know, as much as I enjoy seeing you all here in person, I understand that it is a time constraint. So there is also the virtual option for anyone who may not get to testify, but would like to. With that being said, I'm not going to take up any more time speaking, because I'd like to hear from you all. Madam Clerk, how many people do we have signed up at this point?
At this point, we have 14 people.
14. All right.
Probably a few more that are considered experts that did not sign up. Myself included, I will go to that. Also, there should be some folks on Zoom who are also
Okay. And how many do we have on Zoom?
The last I checked, there were, I think, about 7 people on Zoom.
Okay. Okay. And could you just
Now it looks like we may have a total, with me adding, about 26.
about 26? Okay, then yeah, we're not going to get through everyone at 3 minutes apiece. But I would like to give everyone 3 minutes apiece. So at this point, we're going to give everyone 3 minutes. We're just going to get through as many people as we can. And like I said, I'm committed to continuing to come back until we've heard from you all. So, Madam Clerk, if you could please let the first speaker know.
Ms. Bordeaux would like to go first, so I will have her to go first.
All right.
We'll do a group swearing.
All right, Ms. Bordeaux, do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
Yes, yes, I do.
All right, 3 minutes. Please proceed.
I just want to start by saying I am incredibly frustrated.
Could you speak a little bit more into the microphone? Thank you.
How's this?
Great. I just want to make sure the people at home can hear you too.
I appreciate that, Alderman. I just want to start by saying, excuse me, my name is Inez Bordeaux. I am the Deputy Director of Community Collaborations at Arch City Defenders. I'm an organizer with the Close the Workhouse campaign. I'm an organizer with the Defund, Re-envision, Transform campaign. I'm the chair of the People's Plan, and I am the committee woman of the 3rd Ward. I'm incredibly frustrated by the way this process has gone, but I'm gonna really attempt to keep it cute today. Here today, although I wear a lot of different hats, today I am just here as myself. As Inez Bordeaux, mother, nurse, abolitionist, organizer, and survivor of the workhouse. I spend a lot of time in this room advocating for the things that I believe in, for the values that I believe in, and the principles that I stand on. But the workhouse is incredibly personal to me. It is how I got here. I spend so much time in this building arguing with elected officials about doing what is right for the most marginalized people in St. Louis. This is not the way my life was supposed to go. This was not the plan that I had for my life, but because of the workhouse, I am here. I spend so much time in this building that the cops who do security are starting to recognize me. I don't like that. I don't like that. When this campaign started in 2018, and we said that we were gonna close the workhouse, people laughed in our faces. Some of those people are on this committee. Some of those people are still alder people. But I knew that once I met Blake and Kayla and Kennard and Michelle and Montega and Coleon and Deidre and Jocelyn and Jada, that we were going to be right. I always knew that we were gonna end up right here in this place talking about what to turn the workhouse into when it was finally closed. I always knew that we would land right here, right back where we started. And there are only about 3 or 4 things in life that I love more than saying, I told you so. I was right then, and I'm right now. We were right then, and we were right now when we said that closing a jail wasn't gonna make crime spike. When we said releasing people on their own recognizances and giving them a ride or a bus ticket and a reminder about going to court, that people would show up. That by closing the workhouse, CJC would not be overcrowded. And we were right about all of those things. And we're right about everything that we are going to say now. So rather than give me another opportunity to come in here and look you in your faces and tell you how wrong you are once again, and give me the opportunity to say, I told you so once again, I'm asking you to listen to us the first time. I was a CDO, a community design organizer, and a member of the steering committee of the Re-envisioning the Workhouse process. I was deeply involved in every single aspect of the process to re-envision the workhouse, deeply involved. And the only people who have ever come out and said, we should use the workhouse as a homeless shelter, or we should use the workhouse for tiny homes, are people who have never spent a single night at the workhouse. During this year-long process, I sat down and had conversations with 367 people who had been impacted by the workhouse, and none of them said, we should put tiny homes there. We should put unhoused people there. We should continue to use the site to disappear the most marginalized and the most vulnerable population, one of the most vulnerable populations that we have in St. Louis. Because I already heard your alarm go off, I am going to just close by saying I am here to call on the mayor, Tashara Jones, the one who advocated for closing the workhouse before this campaign even existed, the one who the very first thing that she did to show her commitment to this cause was to sign an executive order zeroing out the budget of the workhouse and setting money aside for this process to honor the commitments that she made, not just to me, but our community, by seeing through with the recommendations that we put forward in the workhouse report, which is fund and implement the Memorial Community Resource Hub that has transitional housing built into it, to follow the recommendations about one of the things that we said would be great at the workhouse. And thirdly, to do workhouse reparations. As a person that has survived the workhouse, there is no closure for me on this until workhouse reparations are made. So I'm speaking to the mayor and I'm speaking to each of you, but I am speaking to the entirety of the Board of Aldermen. Because this terrible plan that the mayor wants to do, it's gonna have to go through you. And if you thought I was relentless before, if you thought I was mad before, if you weren't paying attention to what we did before, please see the way that I am gonna organize this city against the mayor's plan
thank you.
and
I've
against
given you two extra minutes.
You all allow
to wrap
this
it up.
plan. Brett, I'd appreciate a little bit of grace because this is the second time
I've
we've
given you
over.
almost twice as much time as.
And that's fine, and you'll give me a couple more seconds. So
That's
I'm calling
what
on
I
all
said.
of you to please listen to me the first time, and don't let this happen. Stand with us, and don't let this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, call the next speaker.
We have Jamil Atkins.
All right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
Yes, I do.
All right. You have 3 minutes. Please proceed.
I'm one of the victims that's been in the workhouse for 6 months. I've been in the workhouse for 6 months, and I done seen a lot of things in the workhouse that I really don't agree on. But I feel that what they by closing workhouses to me was a good idea, because it really wasn't. How can I put this? It wasn't for me. It wasn't. I wasn't made for the workhouse, but I was sent there anyway, though, through unjust judicial system, because for something I did not do, and I feel that it did something. It caused me a lot of stress being there, and I lost a lot of loved ones because they wouldn't let me see them. I lost a brother because they wouldn't let me. It would not let me go. It would not let me go to the funeral. I don't think that is fair. I think it's unfair, and something need to be done about that. You know, people, you know, the mayor need to look at that and see that. I've been homeless I've been on the street for 24 years, and I have people, but I got people. It's good that I got people trying to help me to get off the street because it's too much. There's a lot of things going on out there, a lot of danger out there, being out there on the streets, and I'm just trying to survive the best way that I can. Basically, that's all I got.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we have Chris Schmidt.
All right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
I do.
All right. 3 minutes. Please proceed.
My name is Chris Schmidt, and I live in the 7th Ward. As with many or all of you, I have no experience with the workhouse. I've never been inside. But like all of you, I have heard stories from so many people who were impacted, and they are all the same. It was truly an awful facility. This is a site far from any resources like bus lines, grocery stores, or libraries. It has environmental issues that will require hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably, of remediation before it can be used well. And traffic along Hall Street is dangerous, whether it's semi-trucks or teenagers racing their cars. Mayor Jones's plan for tiny houses is not good for those reasons. The Workhouse campaign has deeply studied this site and has several good options for you to consider, from a sale to a trucking company, short-term housing for the dogs of unhoused people, or even a return to prairie land, my favorite. A memory marker will be central to any of these choices. You have the power and the authority. I'd like you to consider the options that they offer, and in your wisdom, choose one. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next, we have Eric Ryder.
You swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
I do.
All right. 3 minutes. Please proceed.
All right. As she said, my name is Eric Ryder, and I am here on behalf of Empower Missouri. Since our founding in 1901, Empower Missouri has advocated for a vision in which all Missourians have food, shelter, and justice. Because of this vision, Empower Missouri stands with our colleagues from the Close the Workhouse campaign and amplifies their calls for transformative solutions to re-envision what could become of the previous site of the workhouse. This campaign has echoed the community's resolute call for change, emphasizing a collective desire for transformation, reparation, and renewed prosperity. They have given a voice to powerful and unified demands for a more compassionate and just approach to addressing the systemic issues facing our community. Through that process, the people have spoken. They want rehabilitation, community resources, and an investment from the city that they call home. They do not want to see their unhoused neighbors disappeared by space that has already disappeared their loved ones for decades. Mayor Jones herself has said this is not mere reform. It is a transformation of our city's approach to public safety. It will require courage, creativity, and a lot of hard work. We agree and ask that the courage, creativity, and hard work of community members, particularly those directly impacted by the workhouse, be respected and their suggestions implemented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Dominique Hussein.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
I do.
All right. 3 minutes. Please proceed.
As she said, my name is Dominic Hussein. I'm a resident of the 7th Ward and an employee of Arch City Defenders. And I just want to say, I'll keep it brief, that I'm outraged by the mayor and her administration's actions and decisions. She commissioned and funded the Re-envisioning the Workhouse Steering Committee to decide and recommend what should be done with the workhouse site. They gave clear recommendations, and she has chosen not to follow. The mayor, the steering committee had suggested, after assessing community interests, speaking and engaging with community, and grappling with the question of what should be done with the site, they recommended that the city and the mayor should conduct an environmental analysis of the site in summer of 2023. Unbeknownst to them, the mayor had conducted and commissioned such evaluation, and the results of which we only just last week received, and found that the mayor had always planned to use the site or repurpose the site as a site to warehouse unhoused folks. The mayor plans to essentially de facto revert the site back to the workhouse. If you're going to put people who are undesirable to you, to Shara Jones, back where they were prior to the closure of the workhouse, then you did not listen to the steering committee, and it was all just a farce. So just to reiterate the demands of the Re-envisioning the Workhouse Steering Committee, I, as a resident, call for the mayor to follow the recommendations of the Re-envisioning the Workhouse Steering Committee, fund and implement the recommended community resource hub off-site, which would include housing as is recommended, and provide and plan for workhouse reparations for survivors of the workhouse and the families of those who did not survive the workhouse. The workhouse was a site of true horror for so many Missourians and so many St. Louisans, and has touched the lives of so many of us, even in this room, even if it wasn't direct. And this steering committee cannot allow the mayor to proceed with this plan and refuse to answer for her actions. I call for the mayor to address these concerns, community concerns, and for this plan not to go, for the steering committee's plan to proceed and the mayor's plan not to.
Thank you.
Next, we have Z. Gorley.
Good afternoon.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
Yes, I do.
All right, 3 minutes, please proceed.
Good afternoon. My name is Z. I'm a resident of the 3rd Ward. I'm also the communications director at Arch City Defenders. We're a holistic legal advocacy organization that combats state violence and the criminalization of poor people and Black people. I've heard my colleague Inez Bordeaux say many times, the workhouse is where they send you when they throw you away. Known for its hellish conditions, the building is surrounded by toxic lands saturated in chemicals known to cause cancer and other severe health problems. The land is isolated in an industrial wasteland and is a place where many people have suffered and died. In my role at Arch City, I've led research in the areas of what we call fatal state violence, instances in which people are killed by police and instances when people die in jail custody. We know that of the 47 people who died in area jails between 2009 and 2019, that 7 people died in the workhouse. In anticipation of this hearing, myself and Sophia, an ACD intern, spent hours reviewing news clips, reports for additional people who died at the jail. Our findings, quite frankly, feel inadequate. The lack of information about people who died at the workhouse is unsettling and affirms how easy it is for a city, a system, and a community to throw people away and to erase them as if they never existed. Between 1970 to 2019, we identified at least 21 people who died in the workhouse. Apologies. People like Christopher Brown and people like Louis Lynn Payton, whose family ACD represents in a wrongful death lawsuit that's 4 years old. People like Earl Butler, age 23, who was allegedly murdered in a dispute over a TV program at the workhouse in 1970. There's a 2000 RFT or Riverfront Times article that states, a spokesman for the workhouse says any records that could confirm this about Earl Butler's death are gone. People like Lee Danny Lloyd, who needed access and was denied medical care and medication and committed suicide. People like Loretta Lloyd, Danny's mother, who couldn't get information about her son's death, but got the phone bills. Danny called her every day up until the day he died. Phone bills, that's the last thing Miss Loretta had of her son. But it wasn't just Danny. There was other people like Tyrone McCullough, John Livicoli, Donald Thies, Edward Harris, Quentin Davis, Michael Reeves, and Brian Williams, who died between October 4th, 1999 to October 20th, 2000. Not to compare these grim numbers, but in St. Louis County, there were 10 people who reportedly died during all of the 1990s. I didn't come up here to be complicit in revoking my neighbor's humanity, which is why I am firmly against the Jones administration plan to continue to discard people and erase people on Hall Street, and why I echo the Close the Workhouse campaign's demands, which are to make reparations to workhouse survivors, fully fund the Memorial Resource Hub, and follow the recommendations outlined in Re-envisioning the Workhouse report. And just one more thing. This is about what happened over the past 5 decades on Hall Street, and it's about what is happening now. The Jones administration has practiced and perfected throwing people away and acting like nothing has happened, from the perpetual criminalization and displacement of unhoused people to their silence surrounding the numerous people who have died at the City Justice Center. To date, ACD has filed a records request 3 months ago with the city to inquire about the people who have died at CJC recently, and guess what? The city has not released any information yet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Sophia Coca.
You swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
I do.
All right, 3 minutes, please proceed.
My name is Sophia Coco, and I am a communications intern with Arch City Defenders and a previous resident of Ward 10. The workhouse carries a long legacy of marginalizing and neglecting poor and Black communities, serving as a place where individuals were subject to deplorable conditions and denied basic human rights. The tragic deaths within its walls were driven by a variety of factors, including being repeatedly denied basic physical and mental medical care, leading to the preventable deaths of multiple individuals. In particular, the series of suicides around 2000 sheds light on systemic failures and neglect that persisted within the institution. However, deaths within the workhouse began much earlier. In a clip published by First Alert 4 after the meeting last week, the reporter noted that when asked, the city stated that they don't track deaths per corrections facility within St. Louis and were therefore unable to provide information about how many people died within the workhouse. Personally, I can't understand how the city wouldn't believe themselves to be responsible for keeping track of the human lives lost. There is no clear, or at least accessible, record, database, or documentation. So I brought with me as many names as we've been able to find of those who've died within the workhouse. Hearing their names isn't nearly enough to tell their story, but their names deserve to be heard. I'll say their names now. Earl Butler, Arthur Buckley, Joseph Schumacher, Jerry Bostick, Tyrone McCullough, John Livicoli, Donald Thies, Lee Daniel Lloyd, Edward Harris, Quentin Davis, Michael Reeves, Brian Williams, Patrick Glore, Joshua Turner, Willie Woodbury, Ronald Pullum Jr., Amy Pollock, Justin Ratcliffe, Andre Jones, Lewis Payton, and Christopher Brown. That's a lot of names. To proceed would be a profound disservice to those who suffered within its walls. It would disregard their experience and perpetuate a legacy of neglect and indifference. Furthermore, it would send a troubling message about our priorities as a society, suggesting that some lives are deemed expendable and unworthy of dignity and respect. We must acknowledge the symbolic and emotional significance attached to the site. Survivors and those directly impacted have communicated their lack of support to the proposal to provide housing to the unhoused on this land. It represents a continuation of the city's history of marginalizing and neglecting its most vulnerable populations, perpetuating a cycle of injustice and suffering. Therefore, we should follow the recommendations outlined in the report. In conclusion, let us listen to the voices of those who have endured the hardships of the workhouse and recognize the significance of their experiences. Let us remember the past injustices that occurred at the workhouse and prioritize the well-being and dignity of all members of our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have KB Domain.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
Yes, I do.
3 minutes, please proceed.
I'm KB Doman. I live in Ward 7, and I'm an attorney at Arch City Defenders who works specifically with unhoused individuals. I've also done shelter and mutual aid work since 2016. And in that time, I've seen countless unhoused individuals disappeared into our jails and prisons. Just 2 weeks ago, a man was arrested during a sweep in Soulard where people's belongings were bulldozed under threat of arrest. Officers said he was targeted because he lived in a camp that was too visible to house neighbors and did not leave. He lost all his personal belongings, even those that he had packed and labeled with his name. The city just threw them away. If he was targeted for arrest a few years ago, he would have been taken to the workhouse, facing rats, roaches, asbestos, and other severe health hazards simply for daring to exist in public space. Today, in direct opposition to the 367 workhouse survivors that participated in the report, the mayor wants to put unhoused people at the jailhouse site again. If this plan is enacted, at the next sweep, unhoused individuals will once again be taken to a confined box at the workhouse under threat of arrest, this time disguised as services. Let's be clear, unhoused individuals need homes, not sheds on toxic jailhouse land. This is a place that holds horrific trauma for many unhoused individuals, has severe environmental health hazards for a population that is disproportionately disabled and medically vulnerable. This is an industrial place, hidden from public sight, grocery stores, and bus lines. And this is a place where unhoused residents told me they lost friends years back, killed by the street racing on Hall Street. We cannot allow our city to disappear poor people into the workhouse again. If this committee cares about unhoused neighbors, then by all means, please urge the mayor to fund safe shelters, fund housing, or fund one of the many community-led, safe tiny homes projects that have been proposed over the years, not sheds on toxic jailhouse land. If this committee cares about the workhouse survivors, then follow their demands. Follow the recommendations of the report. Fund and implement the off-site Memorial Community Resource Hub, and provide reparations for those jailed at the workhouse and families of the survivors. I strongly oppose the plan to ignore workhouse survivors and put tiny homes on dangerous jailhouse land. I see yet another attempt by City Hall to disappear poor people into the workhouse. And I see decisions being made without any input from those affected. Decisions made from a building that right now is literally surrounded by park renovation barriers to keep unhoused individuals out. As legislators, you write the laws, and I encourage you to imagine a place for our unhoused neighbors that is not toxic jailhouse land, and to take action to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have August Kelly. Okay. We have Theo Kozer.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
I affirm it.
All right, 3 minutes, please proceed.
Yeah, I'm Theo Kaiser from Ward 13 and also with St. Louis Catholic Worker. Maybe you know it's Easter time right now. I don't always tell folks that I'm into Jesus. There's some not nice folks who claim his name sometimes. But one of the things he does teach is that we should love our neighbors. And I believe that the folks who live in our streets who are unhoused are our neighbors. And I don't know how loving it is to try and disappear them into a part of the city where nobody goes, to put them in an area that is not a neighborhood. I believe that the folks who are at the workhouse were our neighbors too, and that we made that same mistake back then. I'm not going to speak real long. I want to give other folks a chance, but I also want to speak as somebody who does take public transportation in the St. Louis metro area, and it's not great. And it's, this location is not great for it. Having to run across a busy street to try and catch your bus is a terrifying thing often, and it's dangerous. And so, yeah, I would urge you all not to make this site, but to make some other site or multiple sites a place for housing folks housing them with their neighbors in a neighborhood, and I support the re-envisioning the workhouse proposals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Chris Wilcock.
Swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability.
I do.
All right, 3 minutes, please proceed.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Wilcox. I live in the 14th Ward. I'm here to, not as someone who is directly impacted by the workhouse, but I am here to echo all of the demands and priorities by people who are directly affected. There was a whole report and committee for exactly this purpose. We were asking the mayor and the Board of Aldermen to honor those recommendations and their findings. The proposal for these tiny homes, let's be clear, they are not homes. We're talking about sheds. The point of closing the workhouse in the first place was so that the city couldn't disappear people it didn't want to see into little poisonous boxes out of nowhere, in the middle of nowhere. Hearing this proposal was especially galling after the presentation last week with the supposed positive example of a tiny home village where the people giving this presentation about it were condescending and dehumanizing toward unhoused people and demonstrating that it's not even in line with the federal government best practices of housing first, because being on the street is not a terribly good environment for dealing with issues of mental health and drug use, let alone the fact that all people deserve to have a home to call their own, not a little box on poisonous land that is poisoned by many toxins listed in the environmental report, which was commissioned for the purpose of this project long before the report of this steering committee was going to be heard. So very serious demonstration of a lack of good faith in actually honoring what the committee actually set out to do. It contains arsenic, lead, benzene, other carcinogens, at least $1 million probably to remediate the site. Previously, it was estimated it would take 5 feet of gravel to make it safe for dogs, let alone human beings. The city has access to hundreds of properties that I have to think at least some of those are cheaper to remediate into decent housing than the workhouse site. And I have to say, the mayor has not demonstrated a terribly much concern for our house folks. As our previous comrade had mentioned, those ridiculous gates are still out in the city for one of the many times, certainly not the last, and it wasn't the first, where the city set out to expel people from public site and steal and destroy their property. And this is the current policy that the mayor has towards our unhoused neighbors. This proposal is signaling a continuation of that policy. We ask that the Board of Aldermen and the mayor's office honor the recommendations of this report instead of going forward with this ridiculous plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Grace Iverson.
You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability.
Yes.
All right, 3 minutes, please proceed.
My name is Grace Iverson. I'm a resident of the 6th Ward. And when I first heard about the mayor's proposal for the workhouse site, I was outraged but not shocked. It seems that so frequently our elected officials at various levels see the community as maybe some folks who can be easily duped, that we think, this one message of trying to send oh, we're building housing or we're doing this, all these things are going to be perceived as good, when everyone knows the truth, that it's a way of trying to claim you're solving problems without actually listening to the folks who are doing the work, that the city paid to have the work done of creating plans for this and getting most impacted folks input into what the side of the workhouse should be. And so I find it extremely frustrating and insulting, frankly, first and foremost to folks who have been in the workhouse, folks who died at the workhouse, their families, community members, and loved ones, insulting to our current and previously unhoused folks, to have such a dehumanizing proposal, and insulting to all of us as community members. And Yeah, it made me think back to when I was in school in 2019. I was involved in a project partnership with the City Office of Sustainability about assessing city sites for viability around solar. And we found that the workhouse with all of its land was actually like a pretty decent site for solar, but we kind of like pulled the reins back on that because we were like, there's actively a campaign to close the workhouse. The community wants to close the workhouse. And I was so terrified that like, if a project like that went forward, it would extend the life of this facility. And I was a bit naive, right? Like that project wasn't going to move forward. The city wasn't ready to move on solar, but the fear of finding different ways to maintain the workhouse, to maintain carceral spaces is real. And I think this proposal is another way of, as many folks have mentioned, of disappearing people and continuing that legacy of, disappearing our folks, whether it's in the workhouse or in a similarly carceral environment that's disguised as social services or claiming to be social services. So just wanted to uplift all the recommendations from the report that folks worked on. People have the solutions, are willing to work on it, and the Board of Alders has that choice. Do you want to work with the people and build real solutions, or do you want to carry out this toxic plan that takes us back? So yeah, just uplifting the Community Resource Hub, all of the findings and recommendations of the report, and reparations for survivors of the workhouse. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anne Laurie Schmidt and Louise Schmidt.
You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
Yes.
All right, 3 minutes, please proceed.
Thanks. So I helped with the Close the Workhouse campaign from the start. I would give people rides to meetings, and then I would watch their kids while they met and planned. And so that was the introduction to me to the workhouse. I'm originally from South Carolina, not even from Missouri. Oh, but I live in Maplewood, so I houses away from Ward 4. And so I got involved in this campaign, and I listened to the people that I was driving around. Like Chris said, heard the same conditions over and over again. It's similar to me now. I work for Freedom Community Center, and I coordinate the court watching. And we sit in court, and we hear people talk about the conditions in the jails again and again. And what I see is I feel like people don't want to listen to people who are incarcerated. People don't want to listen to the unhoused. People don't want to listen to the formerly impacted by the workhouse because it's like, we don't really believe you. You don't have the clout that other people have in society to have privilege to speak and say and be heard. And so I think that's part of why we're all here. We want everyone to be heard. We want everyone to have a voice. I remember sitting over there for a really long hearing about Close the Workhouse near the beginning. And I remember everybody sitting here saying, no, it's a great place. I roller skated there as a kid and yada, yada. And then not long ago, I'm sitting in a courtroom over there where Arch City Defenders is suing for the reparations of those who were incarcerated in the workhouse. And now the city has no problem admitting that it was horrible, like everything they said about the toxicity and the rats and the horrible plumbing and all the long list of bad things about the workhouse. The reason they closed the workhouse because it's toxic. Now the city admits it, but they sure didn't when we were trying to close it. They were saying it was just fine. And so I think this is an opportunity to not try to be hiding, no, it's not bad, it's fine. But to just face things, do things differently than we typically do, which is try to act like we didn't make a bad plan and just push on forward with it. But say, I don't know that that's a good plan to send unhoused people onto this toxic place, that we closed it because it was toxic. And can we for once, not do the typical standard, let's just bowl on ahead if we have privilege, but can we for once listen to the people who are impacted and act accordingly by letting them lead us?
Thank you.
Next, we have J.C. Pringle, Jossie.
It's Jackie.
Do you swear
My
or affirm
apologies.
the testimony that you're about to
it's
give
okay.
is true to the best of your ability?
Yes.
All right, 3 minutes, please proceed.
As a longtime housing advocate who works in the field of permanent supportive housing, I never thought I'd be here advocating against the opening of temporary shelter in St. Louis. However, the thought of placing human beings in a space just recently utilized for the dehumanizing practice of incarceration is disturbing to me as well as to many others in and out of this room. I strongly believe we need to honor those who have been most directly impacted by the workhouse, those deeply invested in closing the workhouse, and those invested in re-envisioning the workhouse. I strongly believe that funding a resource hub that will be embedded in community, not on this site, is the best use for the workhouse. And any work done should honor those who dare to believe that abolition is possible and necessary to the fabric of our communities. I do believe housing is a human right, and we have altogether failed to make this statement a reality. However, any work done to provide housing or shelter, whether temporary or permanent, should be embedded in community. The location of the workhouse is isolated from community, and any work to place unhoused folks here is a symbolic gesture of our values. That unhoused folks, many of whom are people of color and those with disabilities, deserve to be hidden away, removed from community. Homelessness and incarceration are inextricably linked. The Prison Policy Initiative released a report that found that out of those who have one prior incarceration are 7 times more likely than the general population to become homeless, while people with multiple prior incarcerations are 13 times more likely to experience homelessness. The suggestion of placing temporary sheds on toxic land utilized to cage humans away for being poor, being Black, and being marginalized is unethical, impractical, and harmful. And doing so would be a slap in the face of those most deeply impacted by the trauma of incarceration. My question for the board, the mayor, and city officials, to Magdala and to all of our community is this: what do we owe each other? How do we show up for one another? What does reparation look like? And what does community look like? That's all.
Thank you.
Next, we have Maya Lee.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
Yes.
All right, 3 minutes, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. My name is Maya Lee, and I am a community organizer with Freedom Community Center. We are a Black-led organization founded to dismantle systems of oppression that inflict harm and trauma on Black communities in St. Louis City, particularly the police and criminal punishment system. At FCC, we practice a theory of change rooted in transformative justice. Transformative justice seeks to respond to harm and violence without creating more harm. This means addressing the root cause. What we have come to understand as crime often stems from an unmet need. When faced with their survival, people will do what they can to meet their needs. This is the story of people who were directly impacted by the harmful and violent conditions of the workhouse. Instead of the city investing in creating resources and opportunities to meet the needs of the community, St. Louis chose to lock them up and disappear the problem behind the walls of the workhouse. Disappearing unhoused people into tiny sheds on toxic land continues an infamous St. Louis legacy of the city using this land to exile people they have deemed undesirable. Closing the workhouse was a step in the right direction. Thank you to all of the directly impacted people who worked on the campaign. Your commitment made this possible. You deserve reparations for everything you survived at the workhouse. We now need to honor these survivors by taking the next step of re-envisioning the workhouse in their image. The people who survived the workhouse have informed us what they want to see happen now that this abhorrent facility is no longer operating to cause more harm. The people want to see healing. The people want to see a transformation take place in the city. This looks like people visiting a newly established off-site Memorial Community Resource Hub to have their needs met. If we provide the means for people to have their basic needs met, we will see a natural reduction of harm and violence in our community. In closing, I'm here to amplify the voice of the people and ask you to follow the recommendations brought forward in the Re-envision the Workhouse report. Let's take another step in the right direction and honor the survivors. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Rachel Hurtado.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
I do.
All right, 3 minutes, please proceed.
As others have already, I want to underscore the grave nature of the fate of the workhouse site by situating this moment in the history of our beloved city. This decision is not being made in a vacuum. There is a near 200-year legacy of the calculated environmental destruction and devastation upon Black and working-class neighborhoods in the city of St. Louis. Our government has led the charge of this calculated environmental destruction in many ways, and we are disappointed and enraged that the administration intends to continue upon this path of destruction. The Workhouse Environmental Report was published and submitted to the city in December, 4 months ago, and was published on the city website the morning of the first hearing last week, which is its own heinous act of obfuscation by the city's government. The timeline shows that the administration had already decided the fate of the workhouse site, but long before the Committee of Impacted Survivors and Neighborhood Residents had finalized and shared their recommendations, also in December, which was a rigorous, intentional, diligent, and true community engagement process. The environmental report that the steering committee was not given access to at any point in this process explicitly details that the land contains excessive levels of arsenic, lead, benzene, and 3 other chemical compounds. These compounds have devastating short and long-term effects on humans, including cancer and internal organ damage. The administration is already telling us that remediation, spreading some gravel and soil on the workhouse site, will make their plan acceptable. I want to quickly lift up one of the neighboring parcels of the workhouse, 7455 Hall Street, which is so toxic that it is listed on the registration of confirmed uncontrolled hazardous waste disposal sites in Missouri. This is because even after remediation in the 90s with not just gravel but paved asphalt, the site testing still shows that the land is extremely toxic for human health. My point here is that remediation of the workhouse site will not be enough to make this region habitable. The workhouse land was used to store massive leaking petroleum tanks before it was a jail. Read the environmental report. Even the field notes from the scientists say that right now the soil smells of petroleum just a few inches below the surface. From thousands of Black children with asthma from air pollution to Black and working class elders sprayed with zinc cadmium sulfide in the 50s and 60s who now suffer from cancer and internal organ damage as a direct result of government experimentation in this city, there are many residents in St. Louis who are living proof of just how violent the environmental racism is and has been in St. Louis. I implore the members of this committee and the administration to do everything in your power to divert from this legacy of environmental devastation that harms Black, working class, criminalized, and unhoused St. Louis.
Thank you.
Kennard Williams.
You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
I do.
All right, 3 minutes, please proceed.
Good afternoon. My name is Kennard Williams. I'm a 9th Ward resident, and I served as a member on the Re-envisioning the Workhouse Steering Committee, and I'm a longtime workhouse organizer. Over the years, myself and a group of other commissioners from various backgrounds worked with a consultant team to analyze the plethora of ideas proposed from the community for what should happen with the now vacant site of the workhouse. By last summer, July, we had compiled the Round 1 Ideas Summary and set out feasibility considerations, formed the work of the consultant team, following up with appropriate city divisions in order to gather information necessary to determine the ability and feasibility for these ideas to be executed. At that time, we already had concerns about suspected toxicity on the soil and had come to the conclusion that any options that involved housing people would be ruled out because of the environmental hazards. Additional concerns for many of the community use ideas were eventually deemed as being better purposed for off-site because of the same reasons, in addition to lack of accessibility. As early as July, notable feasibility considerations that were expressed to the committee for affordable housing were: federal funding is often included in financing affordable housing construction. There are restrictions on federal funding programs like LIHTC, home funds, and other environmental quality factors, proximity to railroads, noise, air quality, tree canopy. Yet when we saw the considerations for a shelter, the first thing that was mentioned was the city's current tiny homes transitional housing program, which seeks to move people into current permanent housing within 6 months, is seeking a new location, and that the current lease is up in March 2024. There cannot be a sliding scale of concern based on income for our city caring about the welfare, environmental, and health concerns that will impact anyone who is housed on the MSI site. The only difference between the feasibility considerations for these ideas is that the people who would be living on the land are unhoused. The proposals that have been laid out by Mayor Jones for tiny homes, sheds on the site are not only far outside of what was recommended by the Re-envisioning the Workhouse report, but also expresses a flagrant disregard for the unhoused community, the steering committee, the community in the vicinity of the area, and everyone who worked on this project, and even her own words that she said during the 2023 State of the City address, quote, "The facility formerly known as the Workhouse stands empty of detainees, and we're ready to continue to work to reimagine the site. We're launching a new community visioning process on how St. Louisans want to see the site for years to come. The process will engage the community, particularly people who have had direct experience with the Workhouse, to envision what the future of the site could be." She said, "My guiding principles through the process are simple. Any use of the reimagined Workhouse should be forward-thinking, visionary, but practical to address the standing needs in our city." I asked the people in this room, what part of shipping our unhoused people to a toxic industrial area is visionary? What part of letting people be sent to live in sheds in the food desert with no transit or service support is forward-thinking? None of it is. Our unhoused communities and communities at large deserve more. This isn't the St. Louis of the 40s that dumped nuclear waste in neighborhoods. This isn't the St. Louis of the 50s and 60s that sprayed chemicals over the projects. There is no reason to resign people into an environmental disaster and being exposed to toxic chemicals. It is unconscionable that after the steering committee dismissed the proposals for sheltering alternatives on the site, the Jones administration commissioned an environmental report a month later without the knowledge of the committee, a move that outlines this administration's intent to advance through this process out of bad faith. While the environmental report was completed in December 23, again, without the knowledge of the committee, the presence of toxic chemicals such as arsenic, lead, and benzene were found in the soil. Even as the Re-envisioning the Process report was coming to a close in December, access to the report was not made available until last week, 3/28, right before the last hearing. I'll finish now. Make no mistake, the toxic nature of the site has necessitated the need for the demand of a Memorial Resource Hub, along with the needs of our community to access services that support those who are impacted by the justice system and even those who aren't. Those of us who are organizers, advocates, and those who have lived through the horrors of the Workhouse understand the importance of housing in a person's life and how needed solutions are in helping the unhoused community. If we want to make real bounds in housing our community members, there's a way outlined in this report. By following the recommendations of this report and funding a Memorial Resource Hub off-site, the community will not only, and St. Louis at large, will not only be able to take a step in the right direction for providing housing for those members of our community who need it, including the some 20% of SLPS students who are currently unhoused, but the community at large would benefit from the many service providers, programs, job training opportunities, and other resources. With that being said, I would like to lift up the demands of the Close the Workhouse campaign, to follow the Re-envisioning the Workhouse report recommendations, to fund the Memorial Resource Hub, and grant reparations for workhouse survivors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tammy Bufford.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
I do.
All right, you have 3 minutes. Please proceed.
Hi, my name is Tammy Bufford. I'm a resident of the 3rd Ward. I am here today to urge the mayor and the Board of Aldermen to follow the recommendations of the Re-envisioning the Workhouse report. The city and the community invested time and money to create the report, only to ultimately not use any of the recommendations put forward by the committee or the community. The administration says housing is healing, but how is it possible in a region that's literally toxic? There was an EPA survey conducted that says the land is toxic, and in order to make it safe for animals, you would have to put at least 3 feet of gravel plus topsoil plus grass on top of that to make it safe for dogs. So if the land is not safe for animals, why would we put humans on that land? In the middle of an industrial district that's not legally zoned for housing, and the roadways are majorly unsafe. The area doesn't even have basic amenities such as a grocery store or public transportation. It's literally a desert. The city owns thousands of vacant properties that could be used for housing. Let's use those parcels of land to house our unhoused. The mayor administration had an environmental report done in August ahead of the report being completed, but never shared it with the committee. They have been floating the idea of putting tiny sheds on the land before the report was completed, meaning that they never had any intentions on using the recommendations from the committee or the impacted people. I urge the mayor and the board of aldermen to follow the recommendations of the report and do an off-site memorial community resource hub, and also provide reparations to the survivors of the workhouse. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt Ingram.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Could you raise your right hand, and do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
Yes, I do.
All right, you have 3 minutes. Please proceed.
Okay. I'm going to time myself so I can. Hi, my name is Matt Ingram. I live in Ward 6, and among other things, during my free time, I spend it volunteering for organizations that do outreach to the unhoused in our city, outreach that relies on volunteer power to make up for areas in which the city falls short. One thing I've learned in this capacity is that too often our leaders try to sweep the unhoused crisis under the rug with proposals that provide political cover, but do little to nothing to actually address the reality of the crisis. Proposals like this one. The land on which the workhouse currently sits is home to truck lots and warehouses and salvage yards. It is an industrial area, remote by car, not easily accessible by bus lines or other transit options. And if someone living there had the energy and the fortitude to walk where they needed to go, which they'd have to do for food at a bare minimum, since the area is also a food desert, they'd have to cross major roadways that are not designed for humans to cross on foot. If they needed to get downtown to access services or work or something like that in their community, they would need to walk 2.5 hours one way. The city should absolutely be investing in shelter and our solutions for unhoused neighbors that make it easier for them to stay safe, healthy, and on their feet. The proposal for tiny homes at this site would not do that. Like the workhouse itself, this proposal would only serve as another method by which the city could put our unhoused neighbors out of sight and out of mind. In other words, throw them away. It's disappointing to see the mayor suggest housing our neighbors here when, one, both the EPA and directly impacted stakeholders have made it clear that the land is not suitable for housing human beings, and two, the Re-envisioning the Workhouse Committee has provided detailed plans for alternate uses of the land in addition to offsite proposals. There are so many options from this excellent report to choose from, and none involve hauling people away from their communities to put them on toxic land. As a city resident and a taxpayer with a strong desire to see our government work toward both decarceration and support for our unhoused neighbors, I do not want to see the city cast aside all the work and the care that has gone into this report by attempting to use the land for housing humans, which is one of the few things that the report explicitly asks the city not do. It's nonsense. So I urge the committee to reject this proposal for tiny homes and adopt the recommendations in the Re-envisioning the Workhouse report, fund a memorial resource hub as outlined in the report, which, as has been pointed out, includes transitional housing, and provide reparations for workhouse survivors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Hattie Savab. I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name.
Hello.
Could you turn your camera on, please?
I'm trying to, but it says unable to start video because the host has stopped it.
Is that a STL TV issue or?
Okay.
All right, there we go. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
I do.
All right, you have 3 minutes. Please proceed.
Thank you so much. As said before, my name is Hattie Savab. I live in the 3rd Ward, and I'm here today as a member of the Re-envisioning the Workhouse Steering Committee and as a former bail disruptor with the Bail Project and part of the Close the Workhouse campaign. I had the honor of working on this process because of my personal experiences organizing and advocating with hundreds of people who have been held in the workhouse. In my work with the Bail Project, I worked to bail out over 50% of the population of the workhouse from 2018 to 2020 who were being held on unaffordable cash bail while legally innocent and unimaginable and inhumane conditions. That was over 1,000 bails. For 2 years, I went to that horrible building on that wasteland Hall Street strip at least 2 days a week, every week, and sat with and listened to the stories of hundreds of people who were forced to live there through the deaths of their loved ones on the outside, through their children's birthdays, through untreated illness and injury, through suicide attempts, through flooding, through mold, through rats, roaches, and unbearable heat. And in that time, I recognized completely that it's a privilege to hear and hold space for people's stories, to hold space for people at one of the worst moments of their life. And with that privilege, there is a responsibility to respond. Every single person I met with inside of the workhouse was there because of either racist, targeted policing practices or because of need. And our city's response to need is punishment. Our city's response to need is incarceration. Our city's response to need is disappearance. With the emptying and eventual permanent closure of the workhouse, we actually have a unique opportunity to rectify that legacy of harm done on that land. We have a unique opportunity to honor the lived experiences of the survivors of the workhouse and the memories of those who did not survive it. We have the opportunity to respond to need differently. We have the opportunity to respond to need with support and resource. Our team with the Re-envisioning the Workhouse has laid out a concise plan which would meaningfully address the needs of our community members through a memorial resource hub. The people who I met with at the workhouse were all journeying through housing instability, job insecurity, mental health needs, substance dependence, and each of these needs were exacerbated through incarceration. They deserved holistic community support, and by funding a memorial resource hub, we would be able to connect people with a variety of needs to provide a variety of providers all in one place. That includes, as mentioned multiple times before, transitional housing, substance use treatment support, restorative justice resourcing, legal support, and more. So today, I urge you to use the privilege of having our team's work presented to you, the stories we have shared, and to hold the responsibility to follow the recommendations laid out in the report and to follow the demands laid out by the Close the Workhouse campaign. I urge you not to disappear poor Black and brown people to that land once again. I urge you to fund a community resource hub. I urge you to listen to your constituents and honor the needs of your community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Josh Shepard.
Mr. Shepard. Excuse me.
We can move on to Jada Peters next, and we can come back to Jay.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
I do.
All right, 3 minutes, please proceed.
Right. Hi, I'm Jada. I'm a resident of the 8th Ward, and as others have stated, the Re-envisioning the Workhouse Steering Committee has worked tirelessly to create a set of demands around reparations for those who have been incarcerated in the workhouse, funding a resource hub, and adopting the recommendations outlined in the Re-envisioning the Workhouse report. And those are the only plans that should be considered for such a site of trauma and abuse. Mayor Jones's plan to place our unhoused neighbors on this site of horrors falls in line with the Joneses administration's gross negligence of our unhoused communities. This is a deliberate attempt to continue to isolate our unhoused communities from grocery stores, accessible and reliable public transportation, medical care, and other community members such as those of us in this room. Let us be clear, this proposed plan of continued disappearance of our unhoused neighbors on literal toxic land is an orchestration of their deaths, which at this point seems to be the goal of this administration. We are seeing it right now with the ongoing deaths at the City Justice Center, and we experienced it just 2 months ago with the deaths of 2 unhoused folks who literally froze to death due to these negligent policies. I've worked every winter with other volunteers, many of whom are in this room, using our own resources to open and operate shelters in sub-zero temps, while every mayoral administration turns a blind eye every single winter. As shelter workers, we hear countless stories from unhoused folks who were forced to endure the trauma of being incarcerated in the workhouse. And as shelter workers, we also know that their positioning of being unhoused and formerly incarcerated are direct results of the violent anti-Blackness that's foundational to St. Louis and the United States. This asinine and sadistic plan to put tiny homes on this very land and re-traumatize and harm those unhoused folks is rubbing salt into an open wound that the Re-envisioning the Workhouse plan plans to close. Unhoused folks deserve homes and resources in our communities surrounded by easily accessible necessities, not being put on toxic land away from their neighbors. As committee members, and honestly, as the City of St. Louis, we have an obligation to listen to our unhoused community and the survivors of the workhouse and do exactly what the Re-envisioning the Workhouse report says that we need to do in order to close this chapter of St. Louis' legacy of incarceration and continued harm of our unhoused community members.
Thank you.
Next, we have Terry Powers. Terry Powers.
Terry Powers, 4th Ward.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is true to the best of your ability?
Absolutely.
All right, you have 3 minutes. Please proceed.
I didn't sleep last night. My brain would not stop. I don't know if anybody else has that problem. I sat through last week thinking about World War II when the Japanese citizens of this country were rounded up and put into camps because they could potentially be enemies. And I can't help but think to round up our unhoused and put them out on Hall Street is segregation. And it is so wrong on so many levels. We're hearing about the need for remediation. We think about the people with Coldwater Creek and how they fought, and Josh Hawley is finally trying to save his seat by being active in getting remediation out there for those people who've been crying for it for 30 years. Criminal justice reform and our unhoused are two of my passions. And I have this to say about criminal justice reform. Our medium security inmates do not need to be housed with violent offenders. We had media attention nationwide over the 3 riots that we had at the Criminal Justice Center, where they were setting things on fire, breaking windows, etc., so forth. I'm a clinician, I'm retired, but master's in social work, licensed in the state of Missouri, and 2 years post-grad at the Psychoanalytic Institute. I did about 5 years in child welfare, and it ate me alive. But I know case management. And whatever we do, effective, compassionate, heartfelt case management to empower our unhoused to work towards stability is the key to success. We've heard over and over what's wrong with Hall Street. Within walking distance of here, we have St. Patrick's Center. Now, I've been at this over 20 years, and I have a reputation for taking donations for our unhoused and taking them to various organizations. So we've got St. Patrick's Center. I was over there a couple weeks ago, and the fellow accepting my donation said we had 3 deaths here last week, people who put their tents up against the side of the building. 2 of them were suspected overdoses. 1 had a faulty gas heater and was asphyxiated. He talked about where some of the tents still are. We still have police taking the tents, personal belongings, and trashing them. It is so inhumane and unethical. We have down market Employment Connections, Sal Martinez, sterling organization. And I take donations because they need interview clothes, they need work clothes, and people give me things that would not be suitable for our unhoused people on the streets, but perfect for interviews and jobs. So I take them there. Andrew Cole, the urban gorilla, as he's known, grew up in Wellston. He and his wife have Urban City Services and their Bounce Back program in Soulard, where they help, again, people, number 1, get a state ID, number 2, have a mailing address so that they can go out and interview and apply and obtain employment.
If you could please just finish your thought. We're over time here, but yeah.
What's that? You're telling me?
I said, no, I said if you could please just finish your thought. Yeah.
Well, the point is that we've got a lot of services downtown throughout the city that are not accessible from Hall Street. There are no sidewalks on Hall Street, so we don't have to worry about the people defecating and urinating on sidewalks. There are none. But it's not empowering to stick those people out there and make them dependent on somebody to provide transportation so they can access anything that might lead them to stability. Now, I could go on and on and on, as you well know. But I'm losing sleep. And I want to say that after last week's meeting, I went home and had a glass of wine. We talk about the substance abuse the alcoholism. I can understand why somebody on the street wants to nod off on an illegal substance to escape. But I also want to say we have veterans and we have children who have aged out of the foster care system, who have not been given the skills they need for adult living. A manager at McDonald's makes $34,000 a year.
We do need to wrap it up here.
Live on it. We need affordable housing, but we need a whole heck of a lot of compassion when we think about people through whatever reasons are on our streets.
All right, thank you.
Wait, do I get another 15 minutes?
No.
Jai Shepherd, Jay Shepherd. That is all.
Was there anybody who wanted to testify that did not?
Yeah, is there anyone who didn't have an opportunity to speak, who didn't sign up maybe, who would like to speak? All right. Well, I guess I'll open it up to the committee for the committee to make any statements based on any of the feedback they heard today. We'll just go by seniority. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
No questions. Just thank you all for coming out and continuing your support, and your level of advocacy and your commitment is inspiring. So I always appreciate the opportunity to be able to engage with you all. I listen here, but I also in committee, but I also often go back and watch the committee hearings and listen to things as well and replay. So thank you all, and I continue to, I look forward to continuing to work with you all as we move these plans forward. Thank you.
All right, Alderwoman Keys.
I don't really have any questions, but I would like to thank all of you for being here today. And, Terry, you're close to my heart. And, but I certainly do appreciate all of the testimony here today, and I appreciate your advocacy. This is a very difficult subject, as we could see from the level of emotion exhibited here today. And I just want you to know that we do see you. We do hear you. Thank you.
Alderwoman Velasquez.
Thank you. I have no questions, but I want to echo what my colleagues have said, and thanking you all for being here. It's clear, the message you're giving us is clear about how you feel about the plans that have been proposed. I also one thing that just strikes me, just personally, I know it's very different, but a long time ago I went to the Casa de Memorias in Medellin, Colombia, and they have this beautiful museum dedicated to the thousands of people that disappeared in that community over years, and of course different circumstances. And so, it just strikes me, I'm hearing, the memories and the trauma and what this place invokes for people. And I think that as we move forward and re-envision what we want our community to look like, acknowledging that in a permanent way, I think is really important. So thank you, and thank you all for making time, again, 2 weeks in a row to be here.
Alderwoman Saunier.
I'm so sorry. I just want to let you all know that it really bothers me too. I think that we can do so much better on addressing these issues and on having these conversations. And I think that we have an opportunity to do things differently. And I know how many people in this crowd and in our communities have worked so hard to get, to elect us, and for a lot of us, and to put us in positions because you wanted to see new direction, and you wanted to see new leadership, and you wanted to see conversations that are long overdue, to be had. And most importantly, you wanted to see action that happened, with you and not to you or for you. And so I don't know. I think that I feel the frustration that you all feel. I just want you to know that you're not alone. I think sometimes it can feel like cold on our end. And so I just really want to let you all know that like I share in your frustration, and that that I still believe that we can do better, that we can have these hard conversations, and we can make the the right and just decisions. I still believe that I believe in a government that can be representative of all of its people. I really do. I still do believe that, of all of its people, that weighs the stakeholders and ways where people are. And I think what's breaking my heart is seeing Inez sit in the front row and be in tears, because I know like your story, I know what you've been through, and I can only imagine how it must feel to work so hard to shut something down that has personally impacted you and your family, and then to be back in front of like that similar board of that same entity, and to just kind of be begging to be heard, and be begging for your recommendations and the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into making that report so take place. And I wish that I had more power right now and could do something more than just give you my thoughts and give you my comments and share this. But I guess, what I can do, what we can all do for each other, is just share our empathy, share our frustrations, and be a little bit more clear about who the people are and the power of the people, because I do believe that the power of the people don't stop, and ultimately, like, the collective will win, and the process is just frustrating. And I just, I hope that all of you all, whether you're watching virtually, whether you're at home, whether you watch this later, that, I hope you do feel as though you do have people that hear you and do want to represent you, do want to figure this out, and like don't have a desire to do something just to make it seem like we're doing something. Like, I genuinely want us to do something to move us forward. I don't really care about the appearance. I want us to do it. And so, yeah, I just want to thank you all for being here 2 weeks in a row. And I want to let you know that I love most about being in this city is, like, I know, like, not only are you here today, I know you all will be here every time that this topic comes up. I know that our fight won't stop. I know that us having these emotional moments and having righteous anger and having the frustration is not going to stop us. And I hope that I can just remind us that this is a part of the journey to justice. This is a part of the journey of progress. And just commend you all for, you probably have a million other places you could be and things you could do, and you're still here. And I know that many of you were here last week and this or any other topic comes up. So I just want to thank you for being here, and I hope that you do feel seen, and I hope that you do feel heard, and I hope that you don't allow anything to take away your hope for the future.
Vice Chair Aldridge.
Echo a lot of comments that my colleagues have said. I want to thank the coalition and all the organizations that have been part of organizing, not around this issue just for the last 2 weeks, but we've talked about for the last several years. I'm glad to see folks here. Like Alderwoman Sonia said, I know that folks would be anywhere else, but I'm glad to see folks here. And I know it's tough, and I know my sister Inez moved me. I know how personal this is to her. I know how personal this is to so many people that have been organizing around this issue for a very long time. And the fight isn't over. I mean, this is a city of after the death of Mike Brown, how so many of us took to the streets and organized and used our power and used our voice to get to a place where we actually got the workhouse shut down. And we have to remember that. And we have to remind people as well, if it wasn't for our young brother, some of us wouldn't be potentially sitting up here. Some of us wouldn't be in other rows, in some of the situations of the workhouse being closed, and so much things have come out of that would not have changed. But that has been due to the power of each and every one of us in this room. So organizing, we know when we organize, we win. When we know we speak truth to power, we win. This isn't the end. understand the frustration from being an activist of, trying to do the right thing, coming to the table and putting a report out there, Ferguson Commission report, and sometimes that report being overlooked by the powers that be, right? I would say on record, it's very clear that the workhouse was an inhumane facility. That's why so many of us stood out there from the mayor to the congresswoman, and so many people just said to close the workhouse. And I think it is so inhumane. And I know we kind of referenced EPA. I don't think it was EPA, but I do know that there is an environmental report done that said that there is contamination on the grounds of the workhouse. I think as we re-envision what can be done, something can be done there, but I stand 10 toes down that it does not need to be tiny homes for our unhoused. It does not need to be a place where we're putting individuals away from community, away from resources, away from transportation, away from access to healthcare, away from access to food. And I just want to thank each and every one of y'all for continuing to come out, to continuing to organize. But I want y'all to also remember, because I know it's true, and I know y'all know it's true, again, when we organize, we do win. When we continue to use our voice and we knock them doors, as y'all been doing for the last several weeks around other issues, when we get out there and we talk to elected officials, and when we actually work together in a collective, organized way, there's nothing that can stop us. So thank you for the work that this coalition has been doing. And at least this alderman believes that there's a lot of other things, as the alderwoman from the 6th Ward said, as far as some type of memorial or one of the recommendations that came out of the report. There's a lot of things that could be done, but a tiny home village on a isolated industrial area, in my opinion, is not it. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I want to share in what's been said. I just want to thank everyone for coming out, particularly for coming out 2 weeks in a row. I know that many of you have better things to do than to kind of be rescheduled to next week. And again, I apologize for the necessity in doing that. That wasn't something that I took any joy in, and I want to thank you all for showing up again this week, showing up in numbers, and making sure that your voices were heard here today. I've been on the other side of that desk advocating to people sitting in these seats here. And I know that sometimes it feels like you've wasted your time by even coming down and talking to people who aren't necessarily engaging in a back and forth conversation with you, just kind of speaking at faces for a couple minutes. But I want you to know that behind all of these people, we go back into our offices and we talk specifically about things that have been brought up here in committee, the things that we hear, your experiences, your testimony. And I know, at least as of earlier today, I was speaking to people and no one's mind is made up that any specific thing is happening. And I know it's hard to sometimes keep that in perspective when you see that the administration wants something and it's in the paper and it seems like that's just what's going to happen. But my mind certainly is not made up that that's what's going to happen. It doesn't sound like several of my colleagues are here either, just out in a public meeting saying that. So I think that there's still a lot of work to be done to figure out what is next on that particular parcel of land there. And as I'm trying to say, at least, the system works best when we hear from you all frequently, early and often. So I thank you all for coming out today, and please continue to advocate for the things that you believe would be best on that piece of land as we move forward. And I know that your advocacy extends further than this one issue. I know because I see and hear from you on other issues as well. But thank you all for always showing up and making sure that we are hearing from you and taking that into account when we're making our decisions, because at least for me, I can't operate in a vacuum. I didn't get elected to just single-handedly say this is the way that I feel about it. I'm here to represent my constituencies, and I know that I've talked to many of my colleagues who feel the same, and that we're here bumping heads with each other, but in the hopes of moving towards a better city for everyone here. So yeah, with that, we'll move on. But I just want to thank you all for showing up, and as we move through this process, make sure that you continue to call and email us, and all of that, because they do get read. We do listen to the voicemails. We do callbacks. We do read the emails. That takes up a huge chunk of our time, is getting that feedback, and it is important. So even though it feels sometimes like it isn't, I guarantee you it is. So with that, we're going to move forward. Was there any written testimony?
Yes, we had 9 in the drive.
Okay, thank you. Does any alderperson have any announcements? All right, we have already excused Alderman Oldenburg, and with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you.
3 o'clock, right?
Yep.
It's funny you said that. We make sure your mic is on.
Shout out to every person that showed up today.